Hello, it's Thursday, it's December 3rd, and it's Mrs. King, and I'm here with your math lesson for today and also tomorrow. You heard Mrs. Gannum Monday through Wednesday talking to you and teaching you about perimeter. You should have learned that perimeter means the distance around a shape. For example, if you were putting up a fence in your yard, you would need to know the perimeter of your yard. You would need to be able to measure that so you could be able to tell how much of a fencing that you would need for your yard. So perimeter is like a fence. Today, I'm going to talk to you about what we call area. And area means the space inside a shape. For example, if you were going to get new carpet in your bedroom, you would want to know the area of your room so that you could find out how much carpet to buy. So perimeter is like a fence, but the area is in the middle. That's the carpet. And so today I have a shape, and I'm going to show you how we find the area. There's a couple of different ways that we can do this. So I'm going to start with this rectangle, and I can make this rectangle larger or smaller. Again, let's pretend like this is maybe a room in a house. Let's start with a small room. When I determine area, sometimes we use what's called unit squares. And that's like if we're making an array using multiplication, we're using dots to make an array. It's the same idea. So for example, if I have this rectangle and I fill it with squares, unit squares, you can see that the rectangle starts to fill with those squares. Okay, again, it's like an array. And to find the area of this rectangle, I'm going to just count the number of squares. So I would say I see that there's 3 in a row. Again, I'm just counting how many are in this array of squares. So 3, 6, 9, 12. Okay, now if someone asked me what the area was, I would say that this is 12 square units. Okay, I don't know if it's inches or feet. I'm just going to use the term units, okay? We say 12 square units when we are determining the area. So it could be 12 square inches, 12 square feet. So we just need to make sure we put in that word square when we're talking about area. So that's the area of this rectangle. Okay, let's do another one. I'm going to reset. And this time we'll make a rectangle that's maybe a little bit larger. I'll kind of put it more in the middle here. Okay, and I'm going to fill it with my unit squares. And I can count them as I go, or I can fill the whole rectangle up and then count them after that. Okay, and I want to make sure that my unit squares are the same size. If they're not the same size, then they're not really unit squares. So you can see this rectangle has quite a number of unit squares, and it's going to take me a little longer, but again, in order to, if I have a shape with unit squares, I can count them and then I can find the area. Okay, I know that there are 6 going across, or going down, I'm sorry, and I can count by 6s, so 6 and another 6. Again, this is a lot like a repeated addition when we're trying to find out. Once I've counted all of these, we'll figure out how many unit squares there are. So pause this video and see if you can figure that out. All right, if you said that there were 48 unit squares, you were correct. So we would say that this rectangle is 48 square units. Okay. We can make our rectangle any size, but that's one way that we can determine the area. Now, sometimes you will have a shape that doesn't have the unit squares. It will just be maybe a square or a rectangle without. So I can remove all of these and maybe determine the size. Okay. So I'm going to show you one example of this, and then tomorrow we're going to do a few more. So what happens if it's not letting me exit out of here. Let's see. There we go. All right. So I'm going to exit out and I'll start over. This time, let's do a rectangle. That's a little smaller as we're trying to figure this out. So I have a rectangle, and I don't see any unit squares. So I'm going to, first of all, show you what it would look like with them, though, and then we're going to take them out. Okay, so if I fill it, you can tell that there are 12 unit squares. Okay, I count 12. Now, if I were not to have those, there's a way we can do that. And that is I'm going to have to know the length of the rectangle. Okay, so the length here is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the width is 3. 1, 2, 3. So when I am finding the area, and if I don't have the whole shape is not in unit squares, I can multiply the length times the width. So 4 times 3 is 12. And that's another way I can get my area of 12 square units. Okay, we will be continuing our discussion tomorrow, but that's kind of an introduction about how to determine the area.